Okay. AT Daily on the road. The light is a little tricky. The signal might be a little tricky, but hopefully we're going to be okay. Give people a few moments to find the broadcast. I hope we're finding the broadcast. No one's tuning in yet. Did I start the broadcast on Accidental Talmudist, or did I somehow mess up and put it on my personal page? We're going to find out momentarily. Let's see. Who's in the house? Where are you tuning in from? Let me know. I'm on Accidental Talmudist, right? I didn't by mistake put this on Salvador Litvack. We've got a really good daf that we're going to be exploring today. This page from the Talmud. Hello, John Younger. Where are you watching from? Who's in the house? This is great. That's right. Give those thumbs up and loves and hearts. Helps signal to Facebook that this is quality programming, something worth watching. That should show up in the feeds of our community. That's right, John. You're in Memphis. Thank you. I am on Pico Boulevard here in Los Angeles. This is the Pico Robertson neighborhood. Hello, Kim from Philly. Patricia Lorena Torre de Hernandez. Welcome. Karen Grebe. Hello from New York. How are you today? This is pretty good. I'm parked outside Adas Torah, where I davened this morning. Had a meeting with a friend, and then we did Daf Yomi together. And that's my friend Kurt Byron, who just completed the Daf Yomi cycle and started over. Kudos to him. Hello, Iris Katz from Las Vegas. Hello, Jono Abro from Johannesburg. Great to have Joburg in the house. That is terrific. We are truly an international community. All right, so we are continuing in the new Talmud cycle. Here we are. We're in Tractate Berachos. I'm using the Koren Noe Talmud Bavli. And we're in a section where we've been talking about generally the Mishnah that we're breaking down in the Gemara, right? So the oral compilation and then its first set of commentaries, and we're exploring from what time until what time may we say the evening Shema. But the sages go into all kinds of digressions, and these opening pages of the Talmud are just fascinating, all the different kinds of material that are coming into our Talmud journey at this early stage. So yesterday we finished with this idea that if two people are praying together and just them in a synagogue, one finishes early, you shouldn't just leave and leave the other guy abandoned there. You should wait, because prayer is essentially a communal activity. One of those teachings came down from Abba Benyamin, a sage, and now we're going to continue with another teaching of Abba Benyamin. And we're back to demons. So demons comes up already in the first few pages of the Talmud. This is the third time. And Abba Benyamin says that if the eye could see, we would be terrified, because there are literally demons everywhere. They're all around us constantly. We're going to have a few teachings that demons are not these, huge, scary, overwhelming creatures. They're almost like evil, but small. They need to be respected because they can cause tremendous damage. But generally speaking, they only attack, a loner, a person who is alone, and they sort of lurk around us and do little damages. They wear out our clothes, even though we don't do manual work in our clothes. They cause us to bump into each other and jostle each other and sort of constantly cause irritations and problems that if we allow those things to bother us, they can escalate and become much more serious. The sages also share some techniques for actually seeing demons, or at least seeing their tracks. There's this explanation that if you put certain kinds of ash around your bed at night, then in the morning you'll wake up and see their footprints in the ash. But it's dangerous to indulge in the curiosity about demons, it can end up really hurting you. And one person, sort of indulged that curiosity, ended up being harmed and required all of the sages to pray on his behalf so that he would be saved. And really, we can liken this in modern times to, this saying, curiosity killed the cat, right? If you become too curious about the forces of evil, just understand what they are and what they're doing because you're a little bit drawn to it and you only want to learn about that for the sake of learning, well, you can start to become involved in the activities of the forces of evil and be drawn into it. And a person alone is much more susceptible to those forces. The sages also tell us, I think it's Rav Huna says that if we could see them, we would be utterly terrified, because in fact there are 1,000 demons to our left and 10,000 to our right. Now, we're not being overwhelmed by them. They're invisible and they remain, at bay, as it were. And I like to, I notice that, well, there's 10,000 on my right, only 1,000 on my left. So it's something about my right side is able to hold 10,000 at bay, while my left side is only holding 1,000 at bay. It's almost like my right side is 10 times stronger than my left side. And in traditional Jewish mysticism, in Kabbalah, we understand that the right side of a person corresponds to Chesed, and the left side corresponds to Gevura. Chesed, loving kindness. Gevura, justice, restraint, tough love, as it were. And when in another part of the Talmud we're encounter what is God's prayer. God prays that his attribute of mercy will overcome his attribute of justice. And this is going to be a recurring theme, that whenever these forces need to be evenly balanced, but we give a slight priority to loving kindness, to mercy, right? So we need to judge accurately and righteously, but with kindness and mercy above all. The Gemara continues, and this is very nice. There's a series of teachings that when 10 people pray together, the divine presence rests upon them. When 3 come together to judge, in other words, a court in the old days, the minimum number of judges was 3, and when 3 judges judge, the divine presence rests upon them. When 2 people study Torah together, the divine presence rests upon them. And even when 1 person studies Torah, the divine presence rests on that person. And so they ask, well, if we know that divine presence rests on 1 person who studies Torah, why do we need to say that it rests on 2? 1 is included in 2. 2 is included in 3. 3 is included in 10. And then it elaborates that, well, but there's a different quality to that connection with the divine presence when it's 1 person, 2 people, 3 people, or 10, right? So when 1 studies Torah by himself, it's good, but when 2 study Torah together, their words are inscribed in the book of remembrance. It's like something more permanent, more real happens when 2 study Torah together than when a person studies alone. When 3 come together to judge a case, why is this worth mentioning separately? Because you might have thought that 3 judging is really just to preserve the peace. We need courts of law. But in fact, in the old days, in ancient Israel, there was no separation of church and state. There was separation between the king and the priesthood. But in a court of law, when people were being judged in a court, they were being judged according to Torah law. So when the judges begin their deliberations, they are engaging in Torah study. Why is it worth mentioning that 10 together have the divine presence on them? Because when 10 come together to pray, it's not that the divine presence comes and rests on them, but rather the divine presence is already waiting for them to come together and become a minyan, a quorum of 10, right? It's very beautiful, this idea that God is waiting for us to come and join together as a community to give praise and thanks. And this idea that God is waiting for us now becomes the sort of crux of the next section in the Talmud. And here, we might be tempted to think that we are anthropomorphizing God, ascribing human qualities. Oh, you're not getting sound. Guys, am I not coming through with sound? I thought I had a very strong signal here, but I'm not seeing any comments. Can you let me know, is there an issue with audio? Let me know. I'm just going to wait a second. I hate technical difficulties. It is the very worst. Okay, thank you, John. Okay, hopefully wherever you are, this is coming through. The numbers are pretty low, but with God's help, in the replay, the technical problems will be worked out. Okay, so this idea, this question, do we anthropomorphize God when we ascribe emotional qualities to God? This idea that God is waiting for us, that God can become angry or disappointed if we let him down, that God is pleased when we do our best, when we obey the laws, when we bring a sacrifice, when we treat our fellow man and woman with kindness. Is that anthropomorphizing a perfect and infinite being to say that God is emotional? It's a very important question. The rabbis of the sages of the Talmud absolutely say that God has emotions. God is an emotional being. How do we know? Because it's in the Torah. In the Torah it says God becomes jealous, God becomes angry, or God, when we bring a sacrifice, it is a pleasing aroma. Certainly God is infinite, and we cannot begin to understand what emotions God feels or the extent of God. But at least in terms of the part of God, the expression of God that God enables or allows us to connect with, that part of God is emotional. And we can create, he gives us the power to please or anger him. It's an unbelievable thing. Why would God stoop, as it were, to give us this power to create emotions in him? Why? Because he's created humans with free will and has told us that he desires relationship with us. In fact, the sages go so far as to say that the entire world was created for the person who has awe of God, obeys God's will, and aspires to have that relationship with God. God wants that relationship. And it makes sense. I mean, imagine you're the only and most perfect being in the universe. You're alone. You would want someone that is free to have relationship with you. Somebody who is not nullified by the fact that he's so tiny and you the infinite are so big that there's no possibility of relationship. So instead, God humbles himself. God is amazingly humble, sort of retreats, creates a space where God is not, so that we are free to accept and love God or reject and, God forbid, even hate God, right? We are free to do that. And so it gives God great pleasure from our freedom when we reach out to him and want to do God's will. And that is why God takes it so seriously and so meaningfully when we try to do his will. And even if we fail, right? So a person who wants to obey the commandments and then is prevented by circumstances from fulfilling a particular commandment, but you tried and you really wanted to, you just weren't able to, so you get credit as if you did it, right? When you try to do a mitzvah, even if you're prevented from completing it, you get credit for doing it if it was a sincere desire on your part to do it, and it was only circumstances that stopped you. The sages also explore the multiple benefits of every mitzvah. And generally we say that it's part of the teachings of Pirkei Avos, the chapters of the fathers, that the reward of a mitzvah is the opportunity to do another mitzvah. But there are also inherent rewards, contained in the mitzvahs that our sages explore. And so, for example, let me just open up this list. It was really interesting, right? That the reward for studying the laws, for studying the halacha, is that you also build this capacity for logical analysis. This we've heard before, right? The Talmudic mind, as it were. That there's the reward for attending the house of mourning, not just that you completed the mitzvah of attending to the house of mourning, but that you get to, relish the silence in a house of mourning, and in that silence comfort the mourner with your presence, with the connection that you're just there for him, not with what you say to him or her. That the reward for a fast day is not just that you fasted and completed that mitzvah, but also that you gave charity. On a day of fasting, you must give charity. That the reward for giving a eulogy at a funeral is that you inspire people to cry over the one who is gone. And so that person gets more honor and more remembrance. That the reward for attending a wedding is that you get to give words to the groom and the bride and inspire others to do the same. There's these inherent rewards built into the mitzvahs. The sages in this page also mention the importance of the afternoon prayer, right? So we're supposed to pray 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, and evening. And they're right now singling out the special importance of the afternoon prayer. Why? Because it's not that difficult to create a habit of praying in the morning. When you get up, pray, then get on with your day. And in the evening, finish your day, pray, and go to bed. But in the afternoon, when you're in the midst of running after your livelihood, of doing your work, of doing the things that are important to you and your family, that you're going to pause and stop those things and give thanks and praise to the one who gives you life. It's a very, very beautiful and important practice that gives God a lot of pleasure. And finally, a final teaching on this daf 6, in the first tractate of the Talmud, Berachos, is that greeting others. How important is it to greet others? If you pass somebody habitually and you exchange greetings with them, so you got to strive to be the one who says hello first, with a cheerful countenance. And if somebody, whether it's habitual or not, whether it's a stranger or a friend, if somebody greets you, says, "Hey, good morning, how you doing?" and you don't return the greeting, and presumably not just a, right? It's not enough to say, right? But you have to return the greeting with some warmth, at least as much warmth as it was given you, and really should try to exceed that warmth. But if somebody greets you and you don't greet them back, so you're considered a robber. Can you imagine that? A robber. It's like we steal from people if they greet us and we don't greet them back. Wow. David Riverstone says, Shalom. Love that. Love that. Love that. Good morning, my holy brothers and sisters. So that's it. That's what we have learned. And what is our takeaway? What is our takeaway? My friend Kurt said to me, you should always leave people with a takeaway at the end of any of these AT Daily shows. I think it's a great point. And I think that our takeaway from this is, elsewhere in the Talmud, it says that everybody should carry or should live as if he's carrying 2 slips of paper, one in each pocket, right? One says, I am nothing but dust and ashes. And the other says, the entire world was created for me, right? How can those 2 thoughts, which seem utterly contradictory, coexist in the pockets of one person? And the answer is because we have that much potential. Because even though we're just one small creature on one small planet in one vast cosmos, nevertheless, each of us is created in the image of the Creator, given the ability, each of us is given the ability to please or displease the Creator, to create relationship or avoid relationship with the Creator. What an astonishing power that is. And just like it gives your parents enormous happiness to say hello to them, to remember them, to call them, to say thank you, and think how much pleasure it gives your parents if you treat your siblings with love and care. So if we're all God's children, then anytime we treat other people with love and care, it gives our Creator great happiness. And now that you know that you have the power to give the infinite Creator of the universe joy, so why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you do it? That is our show for today. Sending you lots of love from Pico Robertson in LA this day. All the best, my holy brothers and sisters.